Michigan's run game has been elite all season long. It's led them to really big wins and it's led them to a playoff appearance. But is Michigan's run game good enough to put up yards and, more importantly, to put up points against Georgia's defense, the stout Georgia defense that has only really let up in one game this year, and that was in the previous game against Alabama? Ryan Curley from Dog Post here, talking to you about Georgia's defense and how they match up against Michigan's offense. I've got all sorts of numbers pulled up in front of me, but a more important number for you guys is that on Dog Post right now we're doing a $2 for 2 months subscription deal that won't last for much longer. Be sure to check that out. So I've got all the numbers pulled up in front of me. You know, I've watched a lot of tape on Georgia and Michigan. Michigan is a run-first offense. They do not have an elite passing offense. They have a running back in Hassan Haskins who has 20 touchdowns this year. Not a lot of people in college football history have rushed for 20 touchdowns in a season. Impressive by him. They average about 223 rushing yards per game. Very, very, very good. Here's the problem they're going to face. Georgia is a top 5 rush defense in the country. They're one of the best defenses. I think they probably are the best defense in the country. I know that the Alabama slip up is one thing, and they allowed 41 points to Bryce Young and the Tide, but that game is in the past, and this is a different team that they are facing in Michigan. You know, Cade McNamara is not the kind of quarterback that's going to drop back and then decide to scramble for 40 yards. He's not dynamic in the way that Bo Nix or Bryce Young or Will Levis even are, or KJ Jefferson, quarterbacks that Georgia's faced this year, Anthony Richardson and Emory Jones. Those guys are all a lot more dynamic than Cade McNamara. So you already eliminate the possibility that McNamara is gonna kill you with his feet. Maybe eliminate the possibilities a little harsh, but I just don't see him running for more than 40 yards. I think that'd be ridiculous. He has 27 yards all year net rushing. And 30 in his career at Michigan total. So that gets eliminated. You couple that with Georgia's defense. You're allowing 81 rush yards a game. That's elite. They've only allowed over 100 yards, I think, 4 times. Let me confirm that. 1, 2, 3, 4. One was to Alabama, and then you had Bryce Young, who was dynamic. One was to Florida. You have 2 dynamic rushing quarterbacks there. Missouri, blowout. And UAB, blowout. So only one game where the rushing really mattered, and it didn't even matter that much because Alabama killed Georgia's defense through the air. So no one has really found success on the ground. And what I mean by that is not, Florida ran for 161 yards. Well, they had 1 touchdown and they got beat by 4 touchdowns. So would you consider that success on the ground if it's not leading you to points? Not in my book, it doesn't. The most hyped up guy in Georgia's defense this year, Jordan Davis, he is a run stopper. He is a 6'6", 340-ish, I have no idea how much he weighs. Everyone says it's different. Pound guy who's going to help stop the run. You have Jalen Carter on that line. You have athletes like Trayvon Walker, Nolan Smith. You have Nakobe Dean, the Butkus Award winner, who will fly into the backfield. You've got hard-hitting safeties in Dan Jackson, Lewis Cine. Michigan is going up a different beast in Georgia when it comes to this run defense, and they're going to have to be really creative in beating Georgia because no one, in my book, has really successfully ran on them this year to the point where it's where a team doesn't have to abandon it altogether and start passing. Nobody has done that on Georgia. Absolutely nobody has done that on Georgia. The only team that picked apart Georgia's defense did it through the air. They had some good runs, don't get me wrong, and Bryce Young had a couple big ones. Brian Robinson wasn't 100%, but he was still successful on the ground. But they beat Georgia through the air. And I have a hard time seeing Michigan do that, and I have a hard time seeing Michigan run in a very successful manner against Georgia, especially when I just pull up these numbers. Michigan's 2 most important games this year. The Ohio State win, that was important for their program, first of all, huge, where they pretty much dominated Ohio State, and they almost ran for 300 yards. They ran for 297. Can any of you guys really type in the comments on this video and tell me that you think Michigan is going to run for 300 yards against Georgia? Someone, please comment that and really mean it. Really mean it. And, I will give you a clap. I will clap you for that. I'll applaud you for being that bold. I'm not that bold in this scenario. And then Michigan against Iowa, where they 42-3 Iowa in the Big Ten Championship. They ran for over 200 yards. I would be shocked if Michigan ran for over 200 yards against Georgia, unless they just don't abandon the run game at all. But Georgia's too physical. Georgia's too fast, and they just don't allow people to run all over them. And the real weakness in this Georgia team, which is what got exposed against Alabama, is the secondary. And that was the concern in the summer. That was the concern I had in the summer. It was the concern that some other people had in the summer is this secondary going to be able to match up with wide receivers? Well, guess what? The front seven can match up with anybody who wants to run on them. And I think that includes Michigan, even though Michigan has, arguably been the most effective running team this year. I don't think they lead college football in rushing, but they're up there. I'll go ahead and pull it up. What's Michigan ranked in rushing offense? They're 10. But they're second out of Power 5 schools behind Ole Miss. So, yes, out of the Power 5 schools, they've been the second most effective rushing offense. But guess who was ahead of them? Ole Miss with Matt Corral, a quarterback who runs. And that is going to be so huge to beat Georgia. A guy that can just, if a play breaks, takes off and can get you a first down. Cade McNamara hasn't been doing that because that's just not the type of quarterback he is. So I have a really hard time seeing Michigan succeed against Georgia's defense. And I know I came on here and I said before the Alabama game, I had a hard time seeing Alabama score 20 points on Georgia. Well, they put up 24 in the first half. It made me kind of look like an idiot in saying that. But here's why I wasn't an idiot. Georgia's defense was historic before that game, and we didn't know that they were just going to completely flop against Alabama. And Alabama didn't beat them on the ground. They really beat them through the air and had some success on the ground. Michigan's going to have to pass the ball, and they're going to have to pass it successfully to beat Georgia. They're going to have to break the holes in Georgia's defense. Holes that I don't know if will exist after Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning and Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann go through the tape and fix. Have we thought about that yet? I mean, they've got a month, not a month anymore, but they did at the beginning of this to fix what they saw against Alabama. And is Michigan's offense dynamic enough to beat a fixed Georgia's defense? That's my suspicion is that they won't. So, I don't know. I have a really hard time seeing Michigan just run all over Georgia. I have a hard time seeing anybody run all over Georgia. The best running back that Georgia faced all year, but from a talent standpoint, was Tank Bigsby at Auburn. A guy who's transferring and may end up at Georgia. That would be interesting. But Tank Bigsby at Auburn, and he didn't play that well against Georgia. I mean, for the most part, Georgia shut Auburn down. And that's, Jarquez Hunter, Tank Bigsby, Bo Nix. I would consider that more dynamic than Michigan's backfield and Cade McNamara. So that's kind of my standpoint as far as Georgia's rush defense goes against Michigan. I have a very difficult time seeing Michigan. Nonetheless, they're not going to put up 300 yards. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're not going to rush for 300 yards against Georgia. They could pop 200. If there's a team that's going to do it, it could be them. But is that going to be enough to beat the Dogs? That's the real question. Let me know what you guys think in the comment and go to dogpost.com for all your coverage.